Okay, apologies for that. Anyways, we're back. We're live. We got 17 viewers on Rumble now. Thank you to Big Bongo and Pre-Built Ear. And it's kind of impressive how slow the latency is on Rumble. So we are back. We're freaking back. So let's go over that anti-militia bill. All right, Senate Bill 3589. All right. The Preventing Private Paramilitary Activity Act of 2024. Senator Edward J. Markey has graced us with this. This act may be cited as the Preventing Private Paramilitary Activity Act of 2024. Section 2, Prohibition of Unauthorized Private Paramilitary Activity. Okay, so here's where they define everything. Private paramilitary, okay, here we go. Large capacity ammunition feeding device refers to a magazine, belt, drum, feed strip, or similar device that has a capacity of, or that can be readily restored or converted to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition. And does not include an attached tubular device designed to accept and capable of operating only with .22 caliber rimfire ammunition. The term private paramilitary organization means any group of 3 or more persons associating under a command structure for the purpose of functioning in public or training to function in public as a combat support, law enforcement, or security services unit. The term regularly organized state militia includes a defense force authorized under Section 109 C of Title 32. All right, so here's the meat and potatoes of this. It shall be unlawful to knowingly, in a circumstance described in subsection B, while acting as part of or on behalf of a private paramilitary organization and armed with a firearm, explosive, or incendiary device or other dangerous weapon, to publicly patrol, drill, or engage in techniques capable of causing bodily injury or death, to interfere with, interrupt, or attempt to interfere with or interrupt government operations or government proceeding, interfere with or intimidate another person in that person's exercise of any right under the Constitution of the United States, assume the functions of a law enforcement officer, peace officer, or public official, whether or not acting under color of law, and thereby assert authority or purport to assert authority over another person without the consent of that person, or trained to engage in any activity described in paragraphs 1 through 4. The circumstances described in this subsection are that the conduct described in subsection A involves travel across a state line or national border, or the use of the channels, facilities, or instrumentalities of interstate or foreign commerce. I wonder what that means, if that refers to internet or mail communications. Involves a firearm, explosive, or incendiary device or dangerous weapon that has traveled in interstate or foreign commerce. Okay, so any gun that you buy was shipped. The use of ammunition or a large capacity ammunition feeding device that has traveled in interstate or foreign commerce, obstructs, delays, or affects interstate or foreign commerce, or occurs wholly within any Commonwealth, territory, or possession of the United States. Exceptions. Subsection A shall not apply to the armed forces of the United States, the National Guard, the Naval Militia, any regularly organized state militia, or any unorganized or reserve militia called into service of the United States, or a group of individuals who associate as a military organization solely for purposes of historical reenactment or study, or parade in public as part of a bona fide veterans organization with no intent to engage in the paramilitary activities prohibited by subsection A. Students in an educational institution authorized by the federal government or a state to teach military science as prescribed part of the course of instruction when under the supervision of a military instructor, or members of an organization that is authorized under federal or state law to provide paramilitary, law enforcement, or security services training, or to engage in paramilitary activity, law enforcement, or security services when performing the functions authorized by law. And in the case of paramilitary activity and law enforcement functions, when under the direction and control of a governmental authority. A person who violates subsection A shall be fined under this title, imprisoned for not more than 1 year, or both, except that in the case of a violation that does not result in bodily injury and is committed by a person who has not, prior to the commission of the violation, been convicted of violating a federal or state law, the person may be sentenced to a probation for a term of not more than 1 year. In the case of a violation that occurs after a prior conviction under this section has become final, the person shall be fined under this title, imprisoned for not more than 2 years, or both. Any person that violates it shall forfeit any of their property, so they'll take your guns. Nothing in this section shall be construed to preclude a violation of subsection A being committed by a person acting separately. Nothing in this section shall be construed to preclude a violation of subsection A being committed by a person acting separately from other members of the private paramilitary organization, provided that the violation is committed in furtherance of or in coordination with the actions of the other members. That's crazy. Whenever the Attorney General has a reasonable cause to believe that any person or group of persons has engaged in or is about to engage in any act, the Attorney General may bring a civil action for preventative relief, including an application for a permanent or temporary injunction, restraining order, or other order. Like, I wonder if that refers to taking your guns, red flag law. Any person injured as a result of any violation of this may bring a civil action individually or jointly with other aggrieved persons. Wow, that's crazy. Well, I don't know if this will pass, but I'm going to endeavor to use my words very carefully, because we are entering into very scary times. And quite frankly, we have been in scary times for quite a while now. For those of you who don't know my background, I've been involved in dissident activism for over a decade now, since I was a teenager. Ever since 2020, I have understood that I am living in an occupied country. So somebody asked me earlier if this, from a accelerationist perspective, is a good thing. And the problem with the accelerationist worldview is that only works if people actually do something. If everybody just continues to roll over forever, then that model fails. However, people are extremely wary of militias because ever since the 80s and 90s, militias have been thoroughly penetrated by law enforcement and federal security services. I'm not a member of a militia. I've never been a member of a militia. However, this wording could easily be used, I believe, to include a group like Patriot Front or the Proud Boys, any right-wing organization with a command structure that defends themselves, even if it's like with flagpoles or something. They could probably construe a flagpole as a deadly weapon, for all I know. And this also, it seems to give them a lot of leeway to punish you for training. Not even public, because it says public marching and stuff. Publicly patrolling and drilling. Okay. So when BLM gets reactivated and, you know, the local militia pulls up, they could just slam them for that. Or, look, train to engage in any activity described in paragraphs 1 through 4. So training is illegal. You don't even have to actually publicly do anything. You don't have to actually mobilize. But if you're doing range day or small unit tactics, which everybody should be doing, by the way. Everybody here should be training. Go take a course somewhere. If you weren't in the military, you can go take a private course. Do it. Well, you still can because they're going to make it illegal, I guess. But any kind of training will be illegal under this. And yeah, of course, they're not going to apply this to leftists, right? So that's bad. It's bad because it would make it illegal to even train. And it also would take away the deterrence of militias, because leftists are pretty scared of militias. That's why they're trying to ban them. And that's why they dedicate so many resources to penetrating them and subverting them. But somebody asked me earlier if this is good from an accelerationist perspective. If you make it illegal to do this, if you make it illegal to engage in private paramilitary activity, then it's going to weed out the LARPers. And then you're going to be stuck with people that are actually, you know, dedicated, right? That and feds. But I think American right-wingers cling to guns so much and cling to the militia like, well, the militias will rise up one day. It's like, well, I don't... Like, if it was illegal, like, obviously this scenario that boomers talk about, the militia rising up, like, that would be illegal to do that. Like, revolution and revolt is illegal. That's like the whole point. So if all these people are involved while it's legal to train, and then they make it illegal, it's like, would those people ever have done anything? Ever? Obviously not. So I'm torn on that. But it says 3 or more people, right? Is that the bare minimum? 3 or more persons. That is insane. 3 or more. The fuck? That's like a group of friends. 3 or more persons. That's not even a fire team. That's why they do that though. Because a 4-man team is like the smallest maneuver element in the infantry. Besides maybe like a buddy pair. Yeah, this is pretty bad. I don't think it's gonna pass, but I think it's good that people are realizing that they're gonna come for these rights too, and it's not enough for us to just polish our guns and fantasize. Oh well, my precious Second Amendment is why we're free. I love like these boomers that look at Europeans, and like the tyrannical bullshit they deal with. They're like, well, this is why you should never give up your guns. It's like, well, we have our guns and they're not doing anything. We have our guns, but we're being invaded by millions of people. We have millions of people coming across the border and no one's using their guns. So what's the point of the guns? And most of these revolutions that we see around the world they don't have guns in any of these countries. They didn't have guns in Ukraine during the Maidan riots. They had Molotov cocktails, they had baseball bats, they had sticks. And the guns they got, they took by beating police officers to death and then taking their guns. We have all these guns and everyone's too busy like jerking off over their tactical gear. So like I view my guns back here as like historical artifacts because I love history. It's M16A1 and a 1897 shotgun. Okay, these are both historical weapons used by Marines in Vietnam and World War I, World War II. That's why I like them. But to think that, there's really a chance that firearms are going to be really all that relevant to anything, barring like some astronomically small possibility, I think that's delusion. But the real thing isn't the guns, it's the organization. I think in Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler said a group of dedicated men willing to die for their country, for their cause, with nothing but their fists and bricks, would beat an army of cowards with rifles and machine guns. It's all about the mindset. And that's what boot camp's about. It's about indoctrinating you, getting you organized, used to working as part of a unit. And
Top Gooner just followed on Cozy.
It's getting you, it's instilling you with the will to kill. It's putting it in your mindset that you need to be ready to kill somebody. And that's why you train with targets that are shaped like human beings instead of
Bix_new just followed on Cozy.
Like round targets like they used to use in World War II. Because there are studies that showed that many men wouldn't fire at the enemy. They just kind of like shoot over them in like World War II, World War I. But they changed the way the training is. And the percentage of men of U.S. soldiers that actually kill people is a lot higher than it used to be. Because they focus on that, breaking down human beings' natural aversion to killing each other. Most people don't want to do that. And I think historically, like, a small percentage of soldiers were responsible for like most of the kills because they were like sociopaths or whatever. And if you read Storm of Steel, Ernst Jünger, he talks about how much he loved war, and he talks about killing people and how he would jump into a trench and some British soldier would be, would hesitate because the human instinct isn't to shoot somebody. But Ernst Jünger was stone cold, so he would just kill him. But that's a different conversation, I suppose. Faceless Bounty Hunter says, Zan's hitting me. Night, everyone. Hey, you can't leave till you send a super chat. What the hell is this? The disrespect. Vito Carlucci says, Audie Murphy. Yep. Badass. That guy was a straight up killer. Anyways, so yeah, I don't know if this bill's gonna pass, but it's a sign of things to come. But it's funny though, because people are already acting like being in a militia is illegal. And like, people have been criticizing Patriot Front. And they're saying like, well, how is Patriot Front allowed to do this? Acting like Patriot Front is doing something illegal when they don't even have guns or weapons or anything. But I remember before J6, boomers were all over militias. Boomers still do this in Arizona, by the way. I was at the Arizona GOP convention, and they were advertising for the 11th annual Second Amendment rally, where all the boomer Republicans pull up to the state capitol with their AR-15s and just like stand around with like rifles and shit. But the same people that do that and think that that isn't like Fed activity, they will say that Patriot Front is like, it's too much. White men can't march around unarmed. So that might not be a popular take here on Cozy, but I've only had positive interactions with Patriot Front. I've been on campouts with them. They work out, and I've nothing bad to say about them. I mean, I'm not a member of Patriot Front. I don't think it's I don't know if I agree with their strategic vision, but yeah, what's up with the temple Nick was talking about? Is that real? Do they actually have a Hitler temple? Is that real? But yeah, I don't know. I just hate the infighting. And I was talking with PF for months, and I was trying to get Thomas and Nick to talk with each other. I wanted to like have dialogue to avoid this from happening, because I'm really tired of every faction of the right wing fighting with every other faction. But, I did all I could, so whatever. But the funny thing is, like, Patriot Front guys have had nothing but good things to say about AF. I was expecting them to be more hostile, given the background of all these groups. Like Nick, I've been around, so I know, the background of how all these groups came to be. They didn't just emerge out of nothing. All of these groups, including America First and PF, are just they're iterations of different factions of the right wing that have existed for decades. It's nothing new under the sun. But again, I had hoped that there could have been some kind of dialogue. Maybe there still can be. Nick does have some legitimate critiques of PF. I will agree with him on some of that. But I don't know. PF has like a dedicated core of like 100 or so guys that do publicity stunts. Like, I don't know. I don't think like if we don't think that it's possible for us to do something like that with like this is I'm no longer talking about Nick's critiques. I'm talking about like the boomer critiques where they see a group of like 100 white men marching and none of them are fat and they're like, there's no way we'd be able to pull this off. This has to be the government doing this. It's like if nobody on the right wing can mobilize like 100 or 200 people to do a fucking protest in anywhere in this country, then it's like we've already lost. We should just give up. Like it's logistically hard to put a march together, get a couple hundred guys out there. But like, if you don't think that anybody on the right wing is capable of mustering 100 fit guys to coordinate uniforms and march, then it's like, why are you even involved in this? Like, I would just give up at that point if I didn't think that was possible. And I've helped put on events many times. I was in Identity Europa. I went to lots of national conferences. And we were able to get hundreds of guys to show up, fly out to Tennessee. We would drive, and we'd all be dressed to the nines. We'd all have suits on. We'd have like 100 guys in suits. It was hard, but we made it happen. It's crazy. But yeah, conservatives are just so fucking pathetic. But yeah, that's a different thing than I guess what AF is saying. Hey, can I get can somebody send me a link to the source on that supposed temple thing they have? Is that real?